Okay, so we're going to be presenting on vaccines, and I think everybody knows, but I'm Megana.
I'm Christina. So we're going to start with some definitions. So a vaccine is a product that stimulates a person's immune system to produce immunity to a specific disease. So it means if you are vaccinated that you are protected against a specific virus. So immunity is being resistant to a certain infection. That means if you're immune, even if you're exposed to that virus, you're not going to get infected by it. Immunization is the process of being protected against a disease through vaccination. So viruses are everywhere, and viruses are microorganisms that invade cells and use the cells to stay alive and produce more of themselves. So there's 10 to the 31st viruses on Earth. That means there's more viruses on Earth than stars in the universe. So for the history of vaccines, immunization is nothing new. It has been in use for hundreds of years. Buddhist monks used to drink snake venom to become immune to snake bites. So Edward Jenner, he is considered the founder of vaccination. So in the 17th centuries, cowpox used to be a major issue. It's on the image shown in the top right. So what Jenner did was that he took a pest from the wound of an individual who was infected with cowpox. He then boiled it and then injected it to a random 8-year-old boy. After 2 weeks, he injected smallpox to the boy, and the boy survived. So that means that what he did worked. So ever since then, more vaccines have been invented. For example, rabies vaccine, influenza vaccine, and yellow fever vaccine. So these are just a list of vaccines that are used in the US. I'm not going to name all of them, but for the slides, we're just going to focus on 2 of them to show examples of like the benefits and side effects of the vaccines. So the first one is diphtheria vaccination. So diphtheria used to be the leading cause of death in children, but due to the success of vaccines, it's a rare disease now, and it's basically unheard of. So it is an infection that is caused by a strain of bacteria. So some common side effects of this vaccine is soreness, fever, loss of appetite, and vomiting, but these tend to go away within 1 to 3 days. So there's some misconception about this vaccinations, but the safety data and researchers show that there's no unexpected health concerns related to the vaccine, and there's no increased risk for neurological problems or seizures. So there's a small increased risk for febrile seizure. A febrile seizure is a seizure that you can get due to fevers, but this only happens if it's given with a flu shot, and it's rare. And an allergic reaction can also occur in the injection site, but it's rare. So CDC talks about who shouldn't take this vaccine. So people who've had allergic reactions to it, or they were in a coma, or had repeated seizures, and just the list goes on right here. So another vaccine is the measles vaccine. Measles is a disease that is caused by the measles virus. There's currently no treatments to get rid of the infection. It's only preventable measures. So some side effects of the vaccine is a sore arm from the injection site, a fever, mild rash, and temporary pain and stiffness in the joints. This one can also cause febrile seizure, which is rare, and it has no long-term effects. And it can cause temporary low platelet count, which goes away without any treatments, and it's not life-threatening. And on extremely rare occasions, it can cause a serious allergic reaction. And another misconception about the measles vaccine is that it can cause autism. This is not true, and people only think this because the signs of autism appear the same times as children are recommended to get vaccinated. So they think autism is due to the vaccine, but it's not. So these are some myths about vaccines. The first one is that, again, that vaccines can cause autism. And this fear started in 1997 with an article that suggested that the measles vaccine increased the risk of autism. Several studies found no links between vaccines and autisms. And an article shows that autism develops in the utero well before the baby is born or is even vaccinated. Another myth is that natural immunity is better than vaccine immunity. So what is meant by this is that people think if they get the disease and then fight it off, it's better than taking the vaccine. So the danger of this outweighs the benefits. So if you're going to get natural immunity, for example, to measles, you have 1 in 500 chance of leading to death. And for if you take the measles vaccine, you're only going to get a severe allergic reaction, but the chance of this is rare. It's going to be 1 in 1 million. So basically, the natural immunity danger outweighs the benefits. So another myth is that vaccines can cause the disease itself. This myth is due to the oral polio vaccine that happened in 1955. So this vaccine, there was a problem with it and ended up causing people to be paralyzed. So this vaccine has been discontinued, and because of new technologies and new researches that we have now, we have better safety measures and better vaccines. So vaccines have been safe for decades now, and they follow strict FDA regulations, which is why it takes a long time to come up with a vaccine. So there's different methods to make vaccines. For these slides, we're going to focus about attenuated vaccine, inactivated vaccines, and subunit vaccines. So attenuated vaccines. So the word attenuated means lessened or weakened by definition. So this vaccine uses a weakened version of the virus. So the virus can replicate and stimulate the immune system. So this vaccine has a live virus, but the virus is not strong. It's a weak version of it. So pros of this vaccine is that it can create a long-lasting immunity to the virus, which is usually lifelong. And the cons of it is that it's not for people with weak immunity, long-term health problems, and people who had organ transplants. It's used against measles, rotavirus, yellow fever, and so on. So the second method is the inactive vaccine. So this contains a killed version of the virus. The virus in this vaccine is not alive, and it cannot replicate in the cells of our body. So pros of this is that it is fair even for people that have weak immune system. And then the cons is that the protection wears off. It's not as strong as the attenuated vaccine, and you probably have to take multiple dosage of the vaccine. So it's used against the flu virus, hepatitis A, polio, and rabies. The third one is Subunit Vaccines. This vaccine introduces pieces of the virus instead of the whole virus. So it contains a portion of the virus, usually a capsid. So by a capsid, if you look at the picture on the right, it's just the head of the virus. So this is a bacteriophage. So it would only the capsid of, like, basically the head of the virus will be injected into your body, and instead of the entire virus. So the pros is that it usually does not have side effects in the injected sites, and this one is very safe, and because it doesn't contain the entire virus. Cons is that it is short-term immunity. Booster shots are recommended for ongoing protection, and it's used against HIV, hepatitis B, and so on.
Okay, so current relevance. So why is vaccines important right now? Because obviously due to coronavirus. So because of coronavirus, it's affecting all parts of the world, which is why we have like restrictions such as lockdown, and we're social distancing. This has caused economical problems such as a rise in unemployment and has been shut down of businesses. Worldwide, there's been 66.5 million plus counting cases, 1.53 million plus counting deaths. And just in the United States, there's been 14.4 million plus counting cases and 297,000 plus counting deaths. So what is coronavirus? Coronavirus in a medical term is defined as a family of viruses that are known to cause respiratory tract infections. These viruses are common in both animals and humans, but the spread of the virus from animals to humans are rare. Coronavirus is not a new disease. It was first identified in the 1960s, and there are 7 known coronaviruses that vary in severity. Some of the most known coronaviruses are the SARS-CoV, the MERS, and now the SARS-CoV-2, which is COVID-19. COVID-19 is a new disease caused by the novel coronavirus that has previously not been seen in humans. It's transmitted from an animal population to a human. That's what scientists, researchers believe. And since this is the first time human immune systems have seen this particular strain, we have not yet developed any immunity yet. And now it's being spread from humans to humans all around the globe. The virus that causes this disease is known as the SARS-CoV-2. So there's 3 ways that COVID can be transmitted. It could be transmitted through contact, through droplets, and it can be airborne. So contact, if someone who's infected just has sneezed or something, and it's the particles, either air particles or the respiratory droplets are still present in their hands, and then you shake hands with them, and then you contact them through that. Droplets is if someone sneezes on a surface and those respiratory droplets are still present on that surface, and you touch it, and then you touch your mouth or your eyes, it can be transmitted there. And then airborne is if someone sneezes and that the respiratory droplets are still present in the air, and that could come in contact into your nose and mouth. So how does coronavirus infect a cell? So the virus enters through your nose and mouth, where the infection begins in your airway. The outer strike of the protein of the coronavirus then latches onto the surface of your cell in your respiratory tract. In the case of COVID-19, it's the ACE2 receptor that it binds to, and then then the binding triggers the process by which the virus fumes into the human cell. The viral envelope merges with the oily membrane of our cells, allowing the virus to release its genetic material into the inside of our healthy cells. The genetic blueprint of the virus is RNA, which means that the molecular message instructing our host cells machinery to read the template and translate into the protein so it replicates inside our cells. So treatment, so obviously there's no straight treatment. We can just take preventions. So they could be at-home self-care, which is just monitoring your symptoms, staying hydrated, taking over-the-counter medication if needed. Supportive care would be like oxygen therapy or canal oxygen. Ventilators can be also one. So there's no vaccines, like I said. They're still being in the process of being approved. I'm losing my voice. So for COVID-19, but there are many research being conducted on different types of drugs to be prescribed to the hospital patients. So for vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna are the 2 companies that have developed a vaccine for COVID-19. Both companies have submitted their applications to the FDA to get it approved. I think Christina already went over how the process is long, and they have different requirements that they have to pass. UK became the first country to approve the Pfizer vaccine. So if the vaccines are approved, both companies believe that they can start distributing the vaccine as soon as FDA approves it. So for Pfizer is one of the leading companies in the biotechnical and pharmaceutical company, and they have developed the BNT162b2 COVID vaccine. The company believes from its clinical trial that the vaccine has a 95% effective rate of 95% in preventing COVID-19. The vaccine has went through 3 phases involving 42,000 people, where half of whom received the experimental vaccine and the rest received placebo. The active ingredient in this vaccine is the messenger RNA itself that carries instructions for the virus spike protein, which it uses to gain into our cell. So the mRNA is synthetic, which means it's not the exact virus that we know of. So after injection, the virus particles will bump into our cell and it will fuse. So COVID-19 is different in the sense of the shape of the virus. It has those spike things, which makes it like a unique virus. So bumps in and fuse into your RNA, then the cell molecules read its sequence and it builds spike proteins. The mRNA from the vaccine is eventually destroyed by the cell, leaving no permanent trace. That's how Pfizer believes their vaccine is. And then once the vaccinated cells die, the debris will contain many spike protein and then the protein fragments, which can be taken up, and then your immune system will produce antigens presenting cells, which will lead for you to not be infected. Moderna is also a biotech company, which is believed to develop another COVID-19 vaccine. The company believes that its experimental vaccine was 94.5% effective in their clinical trials. The company's clinical study had 30,000 volunteers where half got 2 separate doses 28 days apart, and half got 2 shots of placebos. From the participant, 95 of them tested positive for COVID, where only 5 of those were in the vaccinated process. So 95 of its participants had already tested positive for COVID. And then from those 95, only 90 of them received a placebo. So only 5% of those 95 got the vaccine. Moderna also uses the same technology as Pfizer for making the vaccine. So they just use the same mRNA molecule. So the only difference between the 2 vaccines that are coming out right now is the way that there's slightly different protocols that they use. So the participants in the Moderna study was conducted using, had 2 symptoms of the disease in addition to a positive test for the virus. And they also waited 14 days following the second injection to begin counting cases. But the Pfizer study only had 1 symptom. So if a patient only had 1 symptom, they were okay to be in the study. And they started counting at 7 days after the second injection. Another difference between the 2 vaccines are the storage requirements. So Moderna states that its vaccine can be stored in the freezer of 25 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like a regular home refrigerator, while Pfizer vaccine is required to storage in specialized ultra cold freezer capable of cooling below 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And then the side effects of the Moderna vaccine is pain at the injection site, fatigue, and aching of muscle and joints, while the Pfizer vaccine, they just believe it's headache and fatigue. And that's it. Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions?